Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
And you can also find all of our videos, which are easy to listen to. It's like a podcast, same kind of thing on YouTube. bjshow.video, bjshow.video. Really easy to find. Okay. The Cori Bush thing. Okay, first off, and I know I've said this to you before, and I, it's getting to the point where I'm writing my book on John Combest, even though, I know what makes John Combest tick and not tick to a certain degree. But I go back to, I guess it's been 4 years ago. When did AOC originally get elected? Was that the 2020 election when she made it into the House? Was that 2020 or 2018?
Oh, no, I think it was before that, but I can look that up real quick.
Okay. There was an independent filmmaker. I've talked about this before, and I think it's called Rocking the House or Bringing Down the House or something like that. Independent filmmaker, I believe his husband-wife team. And what they did was they picked four women who were all trying to run for U.S. Congress. They were going to be U.S. representatives. And they picked four of them, and one of them was Cori Bush. One of them, and that year she lost. So is she been reelected?
Right, it was 2018. Sorry to interrupt, but 2018 was the year that AOC got elected.
Okay, so this was the 2018 election. So this would have been the documentary starts, I believe, in the spring of 2018, when all four of these people start their runs for the House of Representatives, and it follows their campaign. Shows them behind the scenes, shows them in real life, and pretty interesting. I mean, matter of fact, interesting success story for this husband-wife team that did the documentary, because I think they poured like their life savings into it. They put like $60,000 or $70,000. If I'm not mistaken, I think they sold it to Netflix for $11 million. So they did okay for themselves. But what was fascinating to me about it was, in this particular instance, Cori Bush did not come off like a nutbag. She came off as a single mother, nurse, who obviously had aspirations to try to help her community through the federal government by becoming a U.S. representative. And of the four women who ran, the only one who won was AOC. And obviously, part of the draw of this documentary was the fact that, after AOC was elected, everybody's like, AOC, because she instantly becomes this celebrity. She's young, she's attractive, she's outspoken, she's got an opinion on everything, she does a little dance, she has fun with people, you see her prancing around doing stuff like that. And she does not look like, and I think probably also was interesting was she beat out a guy who was at the time was, I think, in the pecking order of the U.S. House of Representatives. And keep in mind, there's 435 of them. He was like ranked like number 4 or something like that. And
you're right.
It was like can't remember his name anymore. She came from total behind the scenes. Now, then she gets elected and she goes wacko banacko. I mean, for the last 3.5 coming up on 4, because she got elected in 2000. She lost in 2018 and won in 2020, correct? Is that with Cori? Does that sound right?
That's correct.
She's been reelected
that's
once.
Right.
Okay. I don't on one hand, I look at her and I appreciate her because, I like people who are disruptors. They're the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, those type of people, the Bill Gates of the world, who essentially come along and really change the landscape of our how we are. But yet with her, I think she had the potential, but she just went to Wackoville. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, there are people that are 2 degrees of separation away from me who swear that she's a wonderful human being and they've known her a long time, and they say that she's very gracious, very giving. So I mean, I think a lot of people have folks like that in their life for whom they would say positive things about them. I think also once you reach an AOC level, once you knock off an incumbent, whether you're Cori Bush or you're AOC, you just have people gassing you up, so to speak, and telling you how great you are and telling you how wonderful you are, and then telling you, look, you are our voice. You are the one. The weight of the world is on your shoulders. You need to go out there and fight. And I think it's hard to go back to those people and say, hey, listen, we need a little bit of compromise. There's a system that you work within. We need to have a little bit more balance in the way we look at these issues. When I got to Congress, I didn't know that these issues were so complex. I thought it was black and white, and now I see that it's not black and white. So there's no incentive for a Cori Bush or for an AOC to quote unquote moderate their positions because they have people continually pushing them further and further to one side.
So you're saying that it's sort of like in the mechanics world, there's a thing in certain engines, especially diesel engines, where they call it a runaway engine. So in other words, it starts up, and once it starts running, it goes full throttle, and you can't stop it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
until
I think
it sort
so.
of blows itself up.
Excuse me. If I'm Cori Bush as well, I look at the so-called democratic institutions who refused to support me in 2018. And they refused to support me in 2020. And now all of a sudden they want me to play nice. Now they want me to be their friend. Why would I give them an inch if they couldn't be there for me in 2018 and they couldn't be there in 2020 and they sided with Lacey Clay over me? Well, to hell with you. There's a new sheriff in town. Her name is Cori Bush. And we're going to do things my way. We're not going to do things the establishment way. And Brad, I would point out that Cori Bush won her last primary. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It wasn't even close. And she ran against a guy who was the son of prominent business people, the Roberts family, here in St. Louis. And she smoked Steve Roberts. It wasn't even close, Brad. So if I'm her, that's a little bit of confirmation bias of, you know what, I look in the mirror if I'm Cori and I'm saying, you know what, people are telling you to compromise, people are telling you to tone it down, but the people in my district voted for exactly what I'm giving them.
Interesting. Okay, I found it. I was correct. It's Knock Down the House, a 2019 documentary film directed by Rachel Lears. It revolves around the 2018 congressional primary campaigns of AOC, Amy Villela. Do you know that name? Villela, Cori Bush, and Paula Jean Swearingen, and categorizes them as 4 progressive Democrats endorsed by Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress, who ran in that year's midterm election. Brand New Congress, have you ever heard of that group before?
No, I haven't. I don't know if they're still around.
Anyway, it's pretty interesting. I know, I give you all my suggestions, and, I'm like you. I don't watch a lot of movies. I think it's always interesting that people will say to me, well, in Godfather 2, do you remember the scene? I go, I've never seen any of the Godfather movies. They go, what? Yeah. You've never seen any of the Godfather movies? Like, I forgot to put my dentures in that morning. You don't have your teeth in your mouth?
Hey, I feel the same way about Star Wars. I've never seen Star Wars. I refuse to watch Star Wars. Same way.
I've seen the first one. That was it. Anyway, I think you as a political animal, which I will categorize you, I think you would find it interesting. And obviously, hindsight being 2020, if you go look at the film, there's 4 women in there. The one woman, obviously AOC, they show her tending bar. Cori Bush, they show her doing stuff here in St. Louis. The one lady, she was the daughter of, I believe, she was from West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, and she was the daughter of a coal miner who died of black lung disease, and I can't remember who the 4th woman was. And they're all very compelling people. I mean,
I'm sure they are, yeah.
And to the point where, to me, and once again, this is why I guess I'll always be attracted to candidates like Bill Eigel, because he's not the guy who is, reading prepared statements. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's...
Oh, yeah, 100%. I agree totally, and that is his appeal.
Right. He's not the talking point guy. He's the guy the Bill Eigel that you see standing up at the podium is the same Bill Eigel And I'm not trying to say I've been in the same room with Bill Eigel. I mean, the guy was one of my clients, going way back like 10, 12, 14 years ago. And then when he ran for the first time around in Senate, he was, oh my God, because once again, he got some grief on this because of the fact that you don't run for Missouri State Senate. You have to become a state rep first, and you have to get your
or a city council,
right,
state rep for 8 years, and then you run for state senate.
Right, which is sort of interesting. Okay, there was something I was going to else talk about. What was it? Do you remember?
You were going to talk about what's going on in your life, Brad. You teased that in A Block.
Oh, well, you know what? Let's leave that alone. Okay, for a minute, I'll get back to it. Okay, your boy and my boy, Mr. Rosenbaum, was.
I was going to say there were so many people that qualify there. Yes, go ahead.
Your boy and my boy, Mr. Rosenbaum, was somewhat featured on a Channel 5 story. You know what I'm talking about with this crazy?
No, I haven't seen this. What is it?
Okay. Channel 5 did a deep dive, and it's funny because we talked about this the other day. A story appeared on the Riverfront Times website.
Yeah, okay.
And one story. And Jason Rosenbaum was quoted as saying that, and it's a pretty funny quote. If you don't know about the deal.
Have it up right now. Yeah, I have it. It's from the Business Journal, and KSDK picked it up. Go ahead.
Right, but apparently one story appears on the Riverfront Times. If you don't know what we're talking about, the Riverfront Times essentially very abruptly shut down business, and we looked at it the other day where essentially it's like, okay, you read these crazy stories about a business that, one day somebody comes in and fires everybody and the place closed down, and you go back a month later and there's still people's, lunches in there, sitting on their desk, and, it's like, this is weird. People just got up and walked out, that kind of a thing. Sort of like the deal with Rex Singfield, but that's a whole nother story. Do you know that whole crazy weird story with whatever, Palopoulos?
With Travis Brown and Palopoulos, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and you know what, that's been mentioned that was mentioned in the Missouri Independent. I had a link up to that yesterday about Rex Singfield's contributions to both Mike Kehoe and Andrew Bailey. Rudy Keller did a bit of I wouldn't call it a deep dive, but he did a superficial dive into what happened with Travis and that whole thing.
Well, the story that I read was pretty interesting. I think it's like you're right. I think it was a Channel 5. Channel 5 had some kind of agreement with St. Louis Business Journal. And they had all these experts that ran, and there were all these different sites I had no idea existed. You can take text and put it into this site, and it'll tell you, okay, it's 85% AI. Well, everybody came back and said that this article was 100% AI. And Scott, or Jason Rosenbaum, is featured in the article talking about it's almost as good as AI as when he did a theoretical AI story about the 8 SO Secretary of State's offices as wrestling people. Isn't that what he said?
As a lap match, yeah, as a TLC, either Money in the Bank or a TLC match. You're right.
Did he?
So a few months ago, he asked ChatGPT to write a story about, and he's done this with Missouri political figures, like what would happen if they were in a TLC, which, as everyone knows, stands for tables, ladders, and chairs match, and it did I would call it a passable job. I don't think Rosenbaum did, but for AI, it did a passable job, I think.
Okay, explain TLC, because even though you gave the letters, what does that mean?
So tables, ladders, and chairs is a unique concept widely popularized by, I would say, the Hardy Boys, not to be confused with the book characters, the Hardy Boys, but Matt and Jeff Hardy, who were WWE superstars in the late 90s, early 2000s, along with a team called the Dudley Boys, Devon and Bubba Ray Dudley. And so there would be a triumvirate of matches with them and Edge and Christian, another tag team. The Dudley Boys were experts at using tables in their matches, putting their opponents through tables, which would usually call for a disqualification. But under certain rules, you can use either tables, ladders, or chairs. So in some iconic matches, you had these 3 tag teams going at it. Essentially, you're able to use those weapons against your opponents. And part of the trick of booking the matches is how you use them creatively. Can you jump off a ladder and put someone through a table? can you hit someone with a chair or set up chairs, set a table atop chairs and put your opponent through it? That's what a TLC match is.
Where do the ladders come from? Are they just sitting out by the ring? Is that what
they're underneath the ring? Yeah. And then in later years, as the matches evolved as part of the marketing and promotion, you would have ladders of various heights, Brad, adorning the ring apron and the area outside of the ring to help hype the match up. So they're just there. And, you can use them creatively to jump off. You could put your opponent on them and then jump off a ladder onto your opponent. Now, in recent years, as you could imagine, for example, at the last WrestleMania in April, the ladders are gimmicked. And so they're essentially, very thin plastic covering styrofoam.
Right.
And unfortunately for WWE, there are some close camera shots in which a quote-unquote ladder will break, and you'll see the styrofoam pieces jutting out.
Right.
Which kind of ruins the effect. But, you buy into it. It's like watching Missouri politics. You know that the outcome is largely predetermined, but you play along and you cheer and you boo and you're just along for the ride.
Well, isn't that politics in general? Let's be honest.
In politics in general, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so did you ever read this AI-generated thing that Jason did with the...
Yeah, I did. Actually, I skimmed it yesterday because you and I, folks can find a link to this on johncombest.com or bjshow.video. You and I talked about the Riverfront Times yesterday and how hipsters will inevitably come crawling back to it. So I did read the piece, and yeah, I mean it's written by some kind of a robot, like it's written by AI.
Man, I tell you what,
you can just tell in a lot of these stories that, and I know that there's computer programs, ironically or maybe not ironically, AI programs that analyze other AI programs, but you can just tell, like you can tell a human. I think you can just largely tell a human voice versus something that's written by a computer.
I have to be honest with you. I play around with AI. Matter of fact, some of the stuff that I'll pull the curtain back. The intro we do is all AI. And there are some new AI voiceover things that are just almost impossible to tell. Now, I'm not saying I have the ears, but after you've done the radio business for a long time, you get attuned to certain things and you can spot, that's AI. I mean, you know what I mean? It's to the point where
absolutely.
It used to be really easy, but there's one particular voice. If you watch any kind of YouTube shorts or Facebook Reels, I don't know where this guy comes from. Believe it or not, I have him in one of my programs that I use. I can use him. And I don't know where in the world this voice was created, but it is, if you've watched any kind of YouTube Reels or YouTube Shorts or Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels, this guy's voice is all over the place. And, essentially what people are doing, they're just taking video, they're chopping it up, and this guy narrates it. And they're just dumping script into it.
Yeah, and there's a popular female voice, at least on TikTok. Maybe it's the default TikTok female voice that appears to be in every chick's TikTok video.
Is it the one that sounds like this?
It is. And didn't you know, my friends and I decide to do the WAP. Look at our booties.
Right.
Please drop a like and affirm our attractiveness.
Now, that one is really blatant, but the dude is pretty good. You can't really...
Yeah, the dude's pretty good, yeah.
You know who I'm talking about, too, don't you?
I know exactly. Yeah, you're right, though. It's used in the so-called faceless YouTube accounts where nobody, it's run by like top sports moments of all time.
Right.
There's no human voice on it except for the AI guy.
Right. Okay, we have to take a break. It is...
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?